Let's go through an example of how we can use Tableau's clustering feature with some of the sample data. We can use Tableau's Superstore dataset, which I've already connected to here. And let's drag in the sales and profit measures. And if you don't automatically get this view, what you need to do is go to the Analysis tab and make sure that your aggregate measures don't have this check mark. You basically uncheck and you will get this disaggregated view. So now what we need to do is switch over to, instead of the data pane, we switch over to the analytics pane. And here you see this model called the cluster. What we can do here is just drag and drop the cluster into the view. You just basically drag it on the chart. You now see a view that shows the variables, and you're prompted to select the number of clusters you wish to create. The variables that are brought in are the ones that are currently in our view, the sales and profit. You can drag in additional variables, and you can also remove the existing default variables. So here we can either put the number of clusters, or it's given us 3 clusters, which I think we can just stick with the automatic recommended cluster number. And now we can go ahead and close that window just by pressing the X. Note that we can format the view to change the colors of the clusters, and we can also rename the clusters into whatever we want to call them. Instead of cluster 1, 2, and 3, we can give them names that relate more to the sales and profit. So, describe that cluster. If you want to dig deeper to see what's under the hood of the clusters, you simply go over to the marks area and you drop down on the cluster, and here you can click Describe Clusters. Here you can see all the details, including the variables, the level of detail, scaling, number of clusters, number of points, the between group sum of squares, the within group sum of squares, and total sum of squares. You also get a view into the centers and number of items within each cluster. Additionally, you can see how many items were not clustered, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Another thing you can do is you can look at the Models tab to see the ANOVA, or the Analysis of Variance details. So, what values get assigned to the not clustered category? Basically, here. So, when there are no values for a measure, Tableau automatically assigns values for rows with null to a not clustered category. Categorical variables that return an asterisk or a little star for ATTR, meaning all values are not identical, are also not clustered. Now let's go ahead and talk about a map example. So you can use cluster analysis in a map view. So let's go ahead and create a map view of profit by location. Let's go back to our data tab and we'll pull in profit, and let's use city as our location. Let's go ahead and let's use a simple map. So again, we go into the Analytics tab and we drag in the cluster. And now you can see that the variable used here is profit. And we will use the automatic number of clusters suggested here. And it should be 5. There we go. We have 5 clusters. Go ahead and close this. And as we did with the first example, we can analyze what's going on in this cluster by going to Describe Cluster. And we have the total of 5 clusters. And for each one, again, we can see the details of the center values and the details around the sum of squares. So, in summary, by playing with clustering functions, you can explore patterns in data that would be difficult to pick out with the naked eye. We wouldn't be able to pick out these 5 clusters just by looking at the data. So Tableau's cluster analysis function allows the user to continually add more variables, and I think it's more of an exploratory tool where you just add variables, take away variables, and just keep analyzing it and look for patterns, look for trends.